Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's Stillwater tutorial. What you see in the vise is a Cruncher-esque type fly, so without further ado, let's get into it. The hook in the vise then is a Hanak H230 barbless hook. It's on a medium wire gauge in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is from Semprfli. It's the 12-aught Nano silk, and as you can see, it's black. First thing I'm going to do then, as always with the Nano silks, is just get a tiny spot of super glue onto the shank of the hook, and this just helps to adhere my silk to the shank and stops body rotation in the fly. So I've just used my thread to spread the super glue, and I'm going to get about 1/4 of an inch worth of wraps down on the shank, and then I can grab my scissors if I can find them and just remove that rat's tail. Next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to use some Flexi Floss. I've already got a piece from the shank, sorry, the hank, not the shank, and I'm going to catch that in just where I let my thread, and I'll just clamp down on that end piece, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it and keep it on my side all the way up the shank. You'll not be able to see it. I don't want it on top because that's going to mess with my tailing fibres. I'm going to bring it down to approximately where a barb would be on a barbed hook. Next then, I'm going to take one of the bigger feathers from the top of my hen cape, and I'm going to use that as my tailing fibres. I'm just going to pull that down, and I want it approximately the length of the shank of the hook. So I'll just bring that up and capture that on. Bring it back to the base, then I can remove this waste piece at the top like so. Okay, so far so good. Next I'm going to use some Opel Mirage tinsel. This is the medium, and I already have a piece cut off and ready to go, and I'll catch that in at the bottom there. Now I'll bring that up. Now there's a bit of a trade-off with nano silks. What you get is very accurate tying, but when you want to build a taper into the body, it does take a little bit of time, but for my money it's definitely worth the trade-off. It doesn't take that long. Few wraps. Then what I can do with my Mirage is catch that in and then bring it in overlapping turns up the body of the fly. And just bear with me while I bring that up, and that should do me. I'll bring my thread over because my thorax will cover the remainder of that area. Now I have had quite a bit of success with this when there's hawthorns being blown onto the water. It just seems to work really well. Fished in a washing line style with a black booby on the point. It goes great guns, especially at places like Bewl. It's where I used to have most success with it. What I'm going to do next is bring my Flexi Floss rib, and the first turn is going to be on the shank, and I'm putting quite a lot of pressure on it initially, and as I come up I'm going to let the pressure ease ever so slightly, just so that it starts to get thicker as it goes round. And then I can lock that into place like so. Couple of turns in front, and I'm ready to add my thorax. And what I'm using for the thorax is some Peacock Herl swords, and what I want to do with these initially is just come up at the weaker end and just remove them softer parts. Then I'll catch them in at the tip and bring my thread forward. Now what I can do now is build my thorax. Now the Peacock Herl, because I'm using 2 strands, it will want to come apart on me, and I don't want that, so do try, and a way to do it is while I'm twisting this over, I'm continually trying to keep the herl twisted together so that it doesn't come apart. Then once I'm happy with the size of the thorax, I can come in and lock it into place. A couple of turns in front, and then that's ready to be removed. Okay, so far so good. Now I've already got a hen hackle picked out, and as you can see I've cleaned away the bottom of the feather, which has left me a little tag. Now that's still a little big, so I'm just going to come in and remove that. Then I'm going to put the stalk across the eye and catch that into place. Okay, that's looking okay. What I'm going to do next is pull the stem just so I get it roughly where I want it, and I can see from the way I've done this that the feather wants to go away from me. Sometimes it wants to come to me, but this time it wants to go away from me, which is fine. Somebody picked me up for the way I do my hackling, but what I tend to do is once I've got it on, I just see how the feather's going to go and then go from there. So I put 3 turns in there, and I'm going to come over now and just got that before my hackle pliers parted company. Get just a couple of turns in. I'm going to lick my thumb and forefinger, pull everything back out the way and start to build a nice neat head. And you're always going to get that with the Nano silk. Now once you've got that into place, of course you can grab the excess feather and that'll just pull away. Now some people like much shorter hackles. I'm easy. As long as it doesn't protrude past the length of the tail, I'm quite happy to have it a good length. So all that remains then is to come in with your whip finish tool and finish the fly off. That's looking not too bad. Just damp everything down, get all them fibres back out the way, so when you come in with your varnish brush, or in my case resin, it just keeps it away from your hackle. You don't want to clog up your hackle with resin or varnish. And then you can cure that off, and the job, as they say, is a good one. Now, as I said, the fly's effective on the washing line. It can be fished straight through as well. And if you see a load of hawthorns hatching off, it's certainly worth sticking on your cast to see how they go. If you're a returning subscriber at the channel, thanks very much for coming back. And if you're new, please consider clicking that subscribe button before you go. And I'll see you all next time.